start recording. Just give us. Give us just 1 minute. I was sending the last reminders, but sometimes technology does her games.
The Global Innovation Management Institute.
Okay. Let me share the video.
The Global Innovation Management Institute, the largest global nonprofit standard certification board dedicated to innovation and innovation management with a global network of over 16,000 members, spanning 116 countries and 20,000 individual certifications, and more than 1,500 organization certifications issued. GIMI is the preeminent thought leader in driving innovation within organizations and equipping individuals with skill sets to innovate successfully. GIMI has published the Global Innovation Science Handbook and is sponsoring the International Journal of Innovation and Science. After merging with the International Association of Innovation Professionals, GIMI became the main innovation certification organization in the world, now driving global ISO innovation management standards. GIMI is driving development of AI tools to help companies do bigger and bolder innovations faster and cheaper through leveraging innovation ecosystems. GIMI is leading 5 centers of excellence across high-growth sectors and has established within the Dubai Government Excellence Program the Global Council of Innovative Organizations. GIMI has created GIMI Think Tank, a weekly forum that brings together some of the world's best speakers to discuss innovation, leading to the creation of the GIMI Speakers Bureau. GIMI is democratizing innovation globally through a network of over 32 partners who deliver GIMI offerings in their respective countries, more than 200 corporate partners, and over 100 universities and numerous governments that utilize GIMI's methodology.
Great. Welcome, everybody, to this GIMI Think Tank. As you know, every week we have this platform. It's a virtual platform where we talk about innovation state of a country. We talk about innovation trends. We talk about different innovation management tools and how different partners, different GIMI ambassadors are doing around the world. Today, basically, as you know, is a non-thematic, think tank, and very soon we will start in September the food tech, center of excellence speeches, where you will learn more about that topic. I would like to invite definitely Viola, who will introduce the speaker for today, Christine, and the topic.
Yes, sure. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. And of course, welcome to our GIMI Think Tank, this weekly exploration of innovation. Today, we're very happy to have with us Christina Inge. She's the founder of Thoughtlight, but she's also Harvard Northeastern faculty. She's an author. She's an AI expert. Today, she will be talking about how AI is redefining marketing and innovation. And of course, just for you to know, Christina is founder of Thoughtlight, which is a Boston-based digital media agency, which empowers mission-driven organizations to harness the power of digital media. She brings more than 20 years of experience in marketing, also now integrating AI expertise. She has created one of the most successful AI marketing-related courses on Harvard Executive Ed. So we're very happy that she accepted this invite. She's the founder, as I said, of Thoughtlight, which is a Boston-based digital media agency that is supporting mission-driven organizations into how to use and leverage digital media to advance communities, causes, and businesses. I saw on her LinkedIn that I will share with you that very recently she was awarded also a grant, and she will have the chance to collaborate with different organizations in Massachusetts, supporting them on marketing and digital strategy. So congratulations on that, Christina. And of course, she is a thought leader. She is quite engaged in the Boston innovation ecosystem, always empowering youngsters, students, startups, academia. She was engaged as a mentor, event organizer, advisor, always wanting to give back to the community. And of course, she's the author of different textbooks when it comes to optimizing marketing strategies, building data-driven strategies, again, for marketing, and always about achieving real-world results. So thank you very much for joining, Christina. It will be a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to your topic, which is on point for the moments that we are living and for the dynamics we're at right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Viola. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very excited to be presenting here today. So yes, as I mentioned, I am Boston-based, and I run Thoughtlight, a digital marketing agency that I started 11 years ago, and we now focus on CRM and AI-driven transformation. And as Viola mentioned before, we were just awarded by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that we are an approved vendor for the workplace development grants, which means that if you are a Massachusetts-based organization or you have a location in Massachusetts, we can train your staff on AI for free through a grant through the state of Massachusetts. You do have to be a Massachusetts entity, but we can train your team for free. And that was just awarded to us this week. So we're definitely looking to help organizations improve with their AI implementation and empower their teams. But why does the latest MIT report say that 95% of companies fail when they implement AI? Now, we've probably all seen that study. It made a big splash this month when it was released, a study from AI saying that 95% of organizations, when they try to implement AI, it fails. And that's a really big problem because companies are predicted to spend $2.4 trillion on AI by 2030. And right now, 95% of pilots that are initiated in the enterprise fail. So I think the real challenge for all of us, though, is to think about how this is happening. Why is this failure happening? And if you look at the study, it's not that companies are not using AI. What's happening is that they are using AI, but it is the individual employees who are using standard AI tools like ChatGPT, they're using tools like Canva's AI, and it is the official top-down AI implementations that are failing, the ones that are piloted by the corporation itself. So why is this happening? Why are we having massive investment and yet massive failure? This gap is an indicator that something is very much going wrong in the enterprise. So what is going wrong in the enterprise? Well, a little bit about what I'm seeing out there. So I have taught hundreds of executives and managers AI strategy and implementation. I created and teach the Harvard Division of Continuing Education's graduate AI marketing program. It's a graduate certificate. I also teach their executive education programs. And we have 3 cohorts coming up in the fall, plus 1 on analytics. And I have, through working with executives and managers and people implementing AI on the ground from the enterprise down to the nonprofit and the higher education sectors, seen what happens with the 5% of organizations who actually succeed in implementing AI. Now, let's talk about why sometimes people fail. They fail because they are believing the AI hype. So this doesn't mean that AI is not transformative. However, AI is also, like all technology transformations, all revolutionary technologies, it is also a lot of hype. And the companies that are in the 95% of that $2.4 trillion investment that is failing are the ones that mistake what AI can do because they are believing the hype. So people will often think that AI can make strategic decisions, that it can replace human judgment, that it will solve your business problems automatically. A lot of people believe that that's what agentic AI will do, and that it will work perfectly with any data that you have, that you don't really need to solve any of your ongoing business problems like a lack of talent pipeline or dirty data. Instead, you'll just plug AI in and it will erase your technical debt and it will solve all of your problems. But that's not what AI actually does. And the smart companies that are in the 5% that are using AI the right way understand that AI is an amplifier for humans. It executes on human strategy, it can process information very rapidly, and it can accelerate the pace at which you do work, but it is not a replacement for human strategy. And also, it requires that you have clean and organized inputs. If right now your business processes are a mess, your data is a mess, you put that into AI, the whole thing is going to be in that 95% of failures because AI requires clean, organized, strategically aligned inputs in order to work. So what does that look like? Well, first of all, the biggest mistake that I see is that people will, again, treat AI like a strategic replacement. Now, I've been in marketing for over 20 years, and this is not the first time that I've seen this type of mistake. Organizations, back when social media came on board, they believed that that was a replacement for strategic headcount. They would simply think that we could hire an intern, post something to social media, and it will automatically go viral, and they won't have to pay for advertisement. They won't have to pay for creative talent. They won't really need a marketing strategy. They will just post things to social media. I remember people calling it the tweeter, and then that would be all that was necessary. If people followed that strategy with social media, of course it failed because they were thinking that computers, that technology would be a replacement for human talent instead of an amplifier of it. The companies that did well on social media were the ones that leaned into being very human, who had a strategy where they created good content, they engaged with their customers, they provided good customer service, and there was always a live human component to their social media marketing. I've seen people think marketing automation is going to replace people. And again, not the case. It's going to amplify your messaging instead. And so the number one mistake I see is the same one I've always seen when we have technological change, assuming that technology is going to replace people and be a strategist. So for instance, an example of that would be asking AI to create our Q4 marketing strategy, or tell it to generate a campaign for our new product, or write our brand messaging. If you put a prompt like that into AI, it's going to come back with garbage. It's going to come back with something very generic. And why? Because you haven't put in any kind of context. You haven't put in any kind of strategy. It doesn't understand what is your competitive landscape for Q4. Are you facing increased competition, slowing sales, a slowing economy? It doesn't know any of those things. It doesn't know about your products. It doesn't know about your customers. So if you tell it, create a marketing strategy, it's just going to outline what the principles of marketing strategy are. Similarly, if you say generate a campaign for our new product, who's the target audience? What is the rollout? What is the competitive landscape? What is your brand? All of those things AI is not going to solve for you. It will create some really nice decks. It can create some really good content for you, but the strategy has to come from you. So the way to deal with this, the number one mistake, is to simply understand and have your staff understand that AI is an assistant and learn how to prompt AI. Using AI to amplify human intelligence by processing information, generating options, helping you brainstorm, helping you take your data and come up with multiple interpretations of it when it's given context, that's something that AI excels at. But people need to learn how to give AI the parameters and the guidance. They need training and they need clean data in order to be able to do that. And then AI can execute tasks under human guidance very well. I've seen it happen. I've seen it achieve efficiencies of 60, 70% in, for instance, a content marketing strategy for a higher education program once this team was briefed on and trained on what is the brand, who are the personas, what is the competitive landscape, what is the context in which the content is operating, is it for SEO purposes, is it for lead generation, is it for something else. Once they have all of that information, it actually does a wonderful job of amplifying your content. But if you dial it down and you just give it, help me do my marketing for me, or do my operations, or do my finance for me, it is simply going to be a failed pilot. So AI, again, it amplifies your human intelligence. It does not replace it. We guide it as the people, and the AI assists it. And this leads to high quality and relevant results. I'm seeing something come in the chat. Oh, yes, please do put your questions into the chat and I will get to them as soon as possible. So I want to give you an example of that. So like I said, I worked with a higher education institution, and they did not have enough head count in order to achieve all of their content marketing goals. They couldn't do personalization, but they couldn't even create the volume of blog posts, social media posts, videos, webinars, and ebooks that they needed for their lead generation. So this was an amplification problem. They knew who their focus audience was. They had beautifully developed personas based on real data of who is enrolling in their programs. They had a brand voice that was very distinctive, which they understood very well and had developed. They had clear marketing goals, KPIs of how many new leads and what enrollment patterns they needed. So they had done all of the human work that was ready then to input into AI. And again, AI fails when you don't have those inputs, when you simply start raw and you try to get it to do your marketing for you instead of executing your marketing tasks for you. So this organization, they had all of that, and I went in and I worked with them. I helped them identify what personas they needed more content for, what kinds of channels, marketing channels, they could be deploying that content on in order to achieve the best lead generation based on their historical data. And I helped them to understand what types of formats were converting for them the best, because they had good data on that. And then help them map out their brand voice. What were their brand's values? What was the tone? And again, brand voice is simply, how does your brand come across? I'll give you an example. What's the difference, for instance, between Air France and Spirit Airlines? It's not just the customer service you're going to get. You can tell that one is a standard airline and one is a bargain airline from the colors they use, the fonts they use, the tone of voice on their social media, in their writing. All of that is something an AI cannot replicate, but once you have that identified, AI can create, in this case, in the case of marketing, which is where I work, very good scalable content. So this brings me to the second and much more important problem of why 95% of AI pilots are failing. You cannot build AI on broken data. In other words, if you do not know what is happening within your organization, you don't have a clear roadmap, you don't have clear information on what you're doing and who you're doing it for, AI is simply going to produce, at best, generic outputs, but at worst, really damaging and destructive outputs. So things that I see every day in my consulting work, duplicate data. People might have 2 to 3 CRMs. It's not unheard of, even though it's always shocking to me, that your sales department and your marketing department may have 2 different customer relationship management dashboards, and 2 different software systems tracking your customers and what they purchase, what ads they click on, what product returns you're experiencing, what customer service calls you're experiencing. So you may have two systems, you may have customers in there under two different records, you may have no records for some people, and information might in fact be old, outdated, or irrelevant. It could also be incomplete. If you've got multiple siloed sources of data, maybe one has all of the marketing contacts you've had with a customer, and one might have sales. And I see this not just in marketing, I see this in every area where people are trying to implement, where companies are trying to implement AI effectively. They do not have complete operational data. They don't necessarily have complete logistics data, although logistics tends to be where the data is the cleanest. And I think that as a result, that is why back-end operations implementations of AI are among the most successful, and marketing implementations of AI are among the least successful. It's because people are trying to use AI, again, as a strategist and not a willing pair of virtual hands. That is exactly the opposite of what AI is supposed to do. And also because they have incomplete and not clean data. And in some sectors, that's much more a pronounced problem. Incomplete data is a very big problem in marketing. And this is a good reason why so many marketing AI implementations fail. An example of this might, for instance, be untracked customer journeys. Again, you have no track record of a customer, how many times they've called in for customer service, how good of a customer they are, how often they click on your ads or interact with you on social media. And so then you can't really use AI to predict their behavior because you have no idea what their behavior is. So a terrible example of that might be, let's say you have multiple different customer relationship management platforms, and now you don't have any data on your customers, and it's now recommending winter coats to people in Florida because it's making automated decisions because of incomplete data. You don't even know your geographic location for your customers, and so you're making completely incorrect predictions. A lot of times people think that the problem is their algorithm. Maybe they need to evaluate a different vendor. The MIT report on the 95% failure rate of AI at the moment in pilot implementations said that people are very skeptical of specialized tools, and they're turning to ChatGPT and Claude and Copilot and Gemini, the four big players of just generic AI, because it learns better. This is a really big insight from that study. And I can tell you as a practitioner, it learns better because it chooses the right model to fit to the questions that you're asking it. And it needs to learn because you are not putting good data into it. If you're starting out with good data, good prompt engineering, you don't necessarily need a long time to productivity and a long time to ROI with your AI. But the messier your data is, the longer it's going to take to learn. It's going to need to learn what data to ignore, what data to consolidate, what to pay attention to, who's giving it good prompts, what are the bad prompts, when does it need to ask clarifying questions. So the bigger the mess you put into AI, the longer it's going to take to learn. And some systems that are proprietary are failing because they do not have the learning capacity of a Claude or ChatGPT or the other big players, so they simply cannot learn as quickly as need be, but you're starting with a mess. And that's why the learning is so important. AI always needs to learn, but the bigger the mess that you're putting in there, the more important that learning is. So moving on, what you need to think about is, where do humans actually have the advantage over AI, and where does AI have the advantage over humans? Because I can tell you that AI, when implemented correctly, it can achieve astronomical improvements in productivity without necessarily having to lay people off or lose headcount. You might even need to hire more people or keep the same staff that you have, but you will be 10 times more productive. The team that I worked with in the case study that I'm presenting, the content team for a higher education institution, again, they achieved 60% growth in their productivity by using AI without losing any headcount and not having to hire new people at all. So how do we decide What is the best human AI partnership? Well, again, understand what AI is good at. Rapid content generation. And by content, I don't just mean marketing content or like ebooks or blog posts or email newsletters or what have you. It can generate invoices. It can generate customer service responses. It can generate financial forecasts. So it can generate standardized information very quickly. And that can, again, save enormous amounts of time on tasks that human beings don't really enjoy doing, like creating financial forecasts or writing a bunch of blog posts. It can also do, obviously, data processing and analysis. A lot of people say, oh, we're not using AI. And then I say, well, are you using predictive models to predict what your customers might buy or to forecast your demand for manufacturing? And they say, oh, yes, yes, of course we're doing that. And I say, and do those systems learn? Yes, yes, they're using predictive models. I'm saying, well, that's machine learning, and machine learning is just another form of AI. So that kind of data processing and analysis, a lot of people are doing a great job of it, and they don't even realize that it is machine learning, and therefore they are using AI. It's very good also at taking content that's been generated by humans and providing multiple different variations on it. Right now within my organization, Thoughtlight, for our own social media, for instance, or our own graphic design, we are now one and done because you can simply use a tool like Canva to resize your marketing materials to social media, into a flyer, into a web page, and what have you. So it's very good at that. It's also excellent at pattern recognition. So again, it's wonderful at understanding buyer behavior patterns. It's great at forecasting demand, and it's really good at scaling. So in other words, let's say you have a successful marketing automation customer outreach, and you are able to re-engage dormant customers and get 25% of your dormant customers who haven't made a purchase from you. For example, giving you a marketing example, you have customers who haven't purchased from you in a year, and you send out a sequence of emails with discounts or welcome back messages, and you get great results in 25% greater sales. But you only did that with your inactive customers for one of your divisions. With AI, you can replicate that across all of your divisions very quickly and with perfect replication, because AI is not as prone to making human mistakes. It makes its own mistakes like hallucinations, but it is not as prone to making human error types of mistakes. But those are the things AI excels at. As you can see, it's not everything. Humans are a lot better at strategic thinking, especially if you have to understand the context. Again, I went back to that example of our case study of content generation. Another example might be your competitive landscape. Let's say you want to determine what new locations your organization, your company needs to open, whether you need to open new branches, you're a service company or a brick and mortar retail, or you need to come up with where you're going to put new warehouses. You can certainly have an AI do pattern recognition and data processing and analysis to see where there are the majority of your customers who are not currently being served, where your workforce is located, for instance, if you're trying to open a new branch, or where there is demand if you want to open a new warehouse. But let's say your competitors are also moving into new markets. AI may not know that context. It may also not know which of your competitors are the biggest strategic threat and which are not. As a result, it would not necessarily be able to make wise recommendations because it can look at historical data, which again may not even be clean data, but it cannot understand the full context in which you are making decisions, competitive, human, economic, social, cultural. It does not understand any of those. It does not understand your customers' motivations. It can predict what people are going to do based on past behavior, as well as economic data or weather data or models of data that you purchase from elsewhere of how similar customers behave, but it does not understand what people think and feel. As a result, it also cannot implement your brand positioning and voice. It cannot tell the difference between the experience of flying on Air France versus the experience of flying on Spirit Airlines. And therefore, it cannot tell the difference between the logos, the tone, the web design that a bargain airline should have versus a standard airline. And moving beyond that, it's also not good overall at judging the quality and the creativity of work. That's why so many AI implementations are now failing, because we are trying to implement it strategically in fields such as marketing, where quality and creativity are so important, and AI is not good at determining what is a quality output and what is not a quality output. It doesn't put extra hands on people in illustrations anymore, but I'll give you an example that I find quite hilarious. I wanted, for the purposes of making a tote bag for my business, my pets are my mascots for my business. It's a little bit of the way we keep our brand fun, warm, and personable. And my chat GPT, I have it trained, it knows a lot about my lifestyle, it knows the names of my pets. So I said, create a picture of me and Betty, my cat, for a promotional graphic that I'm going to use on social media. And instead, for reasons I will never understand, it put a picture of the cartoon character Betty Boop instead of Betty, my cat. It has no idea what it did wrong because it's just an AI. Humans fail in implementing AI when they do not check AI outputs, and they put that kind of content out there. And when you don't have proper governance on AI, you end up damaging your relationship building. If somebody were to see a social media post like that automatically generated, they would wonder what on earth has possessed me, and I would be damaging my customer relationships. And so again, yes, AI chatbots can be very effective, but they are not effective tools for relationship building. So how do you get beyond this hype? How do you get beyond the 95% of AI fails that tend to result from people thinking of AI as a strategist rather than as a partner? Well, first of all, don't even touch the AI at first. I'm serious. We're all very eager to get that budget in hand and implement AI, but what we really need to do first is get our foundation in place. And that is the least exciting part of AI, but the most important, our friend, data governance. So you need to do a rigorous data governance plan, and that's usually where I start with my consulting. I have 15 years of experience in data governance. I taught Harvard's data governance and ethics program for many years. And the first thing you need to do is audit your data quality and clean and organize your data. That's number one. If you're putting in bad data, you're going to get you're going to get bad outputs. It's the garbage in, garbage out has been a phrase in IT and technology for a good reason. It is nowhere more important to remember than in AI implementation. So make sure that you don't have duplicate data, you don't have siloed data, and that your data is as complete, up to date, and clean as possible. It's just core principles of data governance. And I'm happy to talk more about that. And then you need to establish clear human guidelines. If you're doing marketing, that means establishing clear brand guidelines. What does your brand sound like? Is it warm? Is it funny? Is it friendly? You also want to think about what are your quality parameters for AI outputs? What does it look like? But you want to have a rubric of what your quality outputs look like. Rubric is an academic term, but you do need to have some kind of guide as to what your AI outputs want to look like. And then define what your goals are for your AI implementation. Are you trying to reduce customer service calls? Are you trying to improve delivery times? Are you trying trying to increase warehouse efficiency or content output, determine what your goals are and make sure your AI is prompted with those goals. The output of, for example, in marketing a blog post, if you say to AI, I want to increase my lead generation by 10%, is going to be a significantly different output than if your KPI is simply visibility. Because a human marketer would tell you, for instance, that if you want lead generation, you need to talk about the benefits to the customer. Whereas if you want visibility, you need to work with Google search algorithms to have the keywords that are most frequently searched on widely implemented in a piece of content. Very different pieces of content because of the different KPIs. Most people, when they prompt AI, they don't realize, because it's unconscious to them, that most of us, at least if we're experienced in our work, we're already thinking ahead to those KPIs. We already know what we're trying to get out of the AI, and we forget to tell the AI that. We simply say, I want a blog post, or I want a model of what demand is going to be for umbrellas for the next 6 months. But we don't say, I want a blog post for lead generation or for customer service, or I want to forecast demand because I want to know whether we should develop a new relationship with a supplier. It doesn't know that. So make sure you're putting those goals and metrics in. That's an important part of your context. Also think about what other parts of context you need. KPIs are important, brand voice and guidelines are important. Think about what other context humans know about what your outputs need to be that you may not be prompting your AI with. Do they need to know your competitive landscape, for instance? Because those context pieces are what are going to make the difference between good quality AI outputs in any sector, from from logistics to financial to human resources, and bad outputs. And I've seen it across the board. And then, of course, you're going to maintain your human oversight. You are not going to let AI agentically create content and publish it. You're not going to let AI agentically handle your most important customers and your biggest contracts. You are going to maintain human oversight, even above simple transactions and simple actions like chatbots. You may not be able to supervise every single output, every single input, but you do want to maintain oversight. And the more mission critical something is, the more human it needs to be, and the less of it needs to be AI. And then, even though 95% of pilots fail, let's look at that from a startup standpoint. It's actually a good thing that they're failing at the pilot stage. Most startups fail. Most good ideas fail because they're not executed properly. So let yourself fail fast. Fail at the pilot level. Make sure you start with pilot projects. That's what that organization that brought me in to consult with their content output did. They started with just blog posts and website landing pages. You might start as a single location. You might start with a single job function where right now you don't have headcount. You might start with a micro part of a process, but make sure you pilot something. And then you also want to make sure that you are measuring the business impact. So that organization that did the content pilot, they saw the 60% productivity. They also saw an increase in enrollments. They saw an increase in bookings for webinars, which is an early leading indicator of potential enrollment. So those business impacts were real, and so they doubled down on the process because it was working. And so when you identify areas where you are using AI in a way that works, you're going to want to scale that up. And if something doesn't work, you either stop doing it or you look for ways you can implement it. Maybe your data was dirty. Maybe you did not prompt with enough context, and you can go in and you can fix it. And sometimes a pilot isn't going to work because it's just not the right application of AI for your organization. Not every organization can apply AI in exactly the same way and have it succeed. And there's no shame in that. So what success really looks like, not only did they improve their content creation volume by 60%, but they reduced their creation time by 70%. And on some of their emails, the engagement skyrocketed by 40%, as well as some of their blog posts and landing pages. And how they did it, like I said before, they had that clean data foundation. They knew what their brand voice was. They knew what their KPIs were. They defined their brand voice with a lot of detail. We spent over an hour just training the AI with their best examples of brand voice, and that was just for the first pass. Ultimately, they gave it 2 to 3 hours of training on brand voice. We trained the entire team, and that's really important. Everyone in your organization is using AI. And many of them are using it badly because they have not been trained. At the very least, you want to give people guidance on company policy and appropriate and inappropriate use, and a sheet of what the inputs should be. But more training is certainly more important. Make sure, because this is the new frontier for shadow IT, that your team is actually trained on how to use AI and that you have guidance. I know there's a question coming in about the ISO standards, but make sure that you also have your own internal standards of how AI should be used. And then start to measure with real KPIs whether your AI usage is actually working. When we say it failed, for instance, if an AI pilot, what does failure look like? Does that mean in the case of this study that there was no ROI? Maybe there was ROI, but you measured too soon to be able to realize those improvements in efficiency. Maybe you need a couple of quarters for that because your employees still are on a learning curve for your AI use cases, and their own confidence is going to grow and their own skills are going to grow. That's why training is so important. But it's also important to understand what success is going to look like. Is it reduced content creation time, increased production, increased engagement, increased sales, lower costs? What does success look like for you? And then again, make sure that the AI itself is trained with that context and with that goal in mind. Because success in this case came from preparation and strategic human input, not just technology, and that's where success is going to come from for you. So I have this little checklist called your AI readiness audit, and these slides are going to be shared. Also, if you email me, I will send you a larger worksheet on this for free. But if you want to just screenshot this as well, it will get you started. When you are ready to start thinking about piloting AI, you want to ask yourself these 5 questions. 1, how clean is our data? If it's in marketing, how clean is our customer data, our brand data? If you want it in logistics, how clean is our logistics data? Then do we have clear guidelines? Do we have guidelines on what is an acceptable and an unacceptable output from AI? Because that's going to govern what AI is going to produce for you. Without the human guardrails and guidance, it's not going to be able to produce the right content for you. And then think about, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Is it lack of headcount? Is it lack of efficiency? Is it inaccuracy? What is the problem we're going to solve? And then how do we know we're going to solve it? That's number 4. How will we measure success? And then make sure that a human being is empowered to own this. Right now, AI is still in the shadow IT realm. It's still all over the place, and therefore it is not being governed at all, at all. And so that is why it is not succeeding. If you can't answer these questions, if you don't know if your data is clean, if you don't know who the owner is of AI or what success is going to look like, you are not ready for AI. Give yourself a time to think about it. So as we head into wrapping up and opening up for questions, I want to again go back to what I have seen in other technology revolutions. And again, I've seen a few of them. This myth that the new technology is going to be the money button. Remember when people thought social media meant that you would never have to pay for advertising again. You would hire an intern and they would put, no knock on interns, but that you would be able to barely employ somebody part-time at short money, have them post anything at all randomly and programmatically to social media, and you would be making a lot of money. Organizations are always, that is, non-strategic non-strategic organizations are always looking for the technology that's just going to allow them to print money. That's going to mean no work, no strategy. It's simply this magical technology and it's going to create money for you. But if that exists, all your competitors are going to have it too, and it's going to get commoditized. There is no such thing as a free lunch, as we say in American vernacular English. There is no such thing as a tool that is simply going to allow you to make money without any effort. Instead, you have to think strategically that the effort that is going to be human work is going to change. Humans are no longer going to be the people creating generic outputs, creating 5 different versions of an ad in different formats, or generating invoices. That's what AI is going to take over. Humans have to all start thinking, everyone in your team, from your newest hire all the way up to the middle manager and executive level, everyone's going to have to start thinking like a contextually driven, data-driven strategist. You're going to have to think about the context in which work gets done, what the KPIs are, and what the strategic context is, because that is the human part of the human AI partnership. When humans start relying on AI for execution while owning the strategic piece of marketing, that's when AI can do its magic and it create great outputs. So it's your strategic choice. You can join the 95% of people who fail by having humans continue to do the execution, or expecting AI to do execution without strategic inputs, clean data, and clear parameters, including KPIs of what success looks like, as well as an iterative approach to success. Or you can join the 5% who succeed by, again, making sure you are ready for AI, doing an AI readiness audit, ensuring that you have clean guidelines, clear parameters of what good outputs look like, and clean data and good training, and then join the 5% of people who succeed. All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for your attention. As I mentioned before, we can train your team for free if you are within the state of Massachusetts here in the US. If you go to my website, thoughtlight.net, you can learn more about my organization and my work. But if you just have some questions, or you want to find out more about AI, or you would like a copy of my marketing audit ebook and worksheet, you can email me at the email address on the screen, Christina@thoughtlight.net. But again, I really want to thank all of you for your attention and for coming out. And I want to open it up right now to questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Christina Inge.
Christina, for having accepted my invite. Now we'll move on to the Q&A with Hitendra, GIMI's Managing Director.
Good. So, Dr. Christina Inge, Christina, if I may call you, yeah?
You can call me Christina.
All right, wonderful. Christina, wonderful presentation, and it brings back to the statement that technology will not do things for you, will not think for you, will not do what you want it to do. You got to guide it. You got to get up front and create the strategic objectives of what you want to do and how it's going to work. So I think that's an important lesson for everybody in the audience, because a lot of people want to outsource that thinking even to AI to do what they have to do. So I think the big lesson over here is, first of all, do you know what you want to do? And then use AI as an assistant to be able to accomplish those goals and all that. So well, that's one of my first key takeaways. I want to step back though on the question of governance. You mentioned governance as a way to do this right. There are people talking about AI governance at the highest level about data and data security, but there's also the governance that you were talking about, saying who has the decisions on what you're going to do with, let's say, sales. Is it IT,
Yes.
or is it marketing, or is it the sales department? Can you talk a little bit more about governance first, saying how should AI be managed with the IT department as you go forward in sales?
You know what? I think that governance, I've worked with governance for like over 10 years, and it has to be a joint effort. I think that when governance is in the hands only of IT, it begins to be seen as punitive. It begins to be seen as out of touch. I hear from so many people within organizations that they don't trust governance because it always feels like it's, from the outside in, and it doesn't understand the needs of the end user, and it doesn't understand the real use cases. So everybody plays a role in governance for a couple of reasons. One, it ensures compliance and relevance, which is very important. Compliance comes from relevance. People need to have a say in what the governance is going to do. Obviously, it has to follow standard best practices, but it absolutely needs to be a joint effort. And so every organization, everyone within your organization has to set their own standards for compliance. And that's going to look very different for different departments. With marketing, it may mean things like obviously cybersecurity, but it also means things like not sharing data with marketing partners or updating records in a timely manner. So all of that is going to be very important, is that input and that buy-in. And then in terms of who owns it, I think even on the execution side of governance, it has to be a joint effort. It has to be that IT owns mission critical aspects of governance like cybersecurity, but at the same time, the way in which these standards are applied, there also has to be somebody within each job function, and maybe it's not the C-suite, maybe it is, maybe you have somebody well versed in data and governance within each department whose job it is therefore to work hand in hand with IT for governance. But IT has to steer, but they have to have a map, and that map has to come from everybody that they are going to impact the work of, or you're just not going to get the compliance.
I just want to make the point for the audience. Right now, people are across the company using AI, whether it's public domain AI like ChatGPT, or maybe Gemini, which might be an enterprise license that you're using within your own company. But the data that you're putting inside there, depending on where you put it, can become public domain or it can be inside your company. So you got to be very careful with the data rules on that. On the other side, the objective of what AI is supposed to do to help you, whether marketing or operations, that probably is led by marketing or led by operations, but that's their objectives. And IT needs to somehow help and support, provide the guidance of how you manage your data and what LLM you might use to be able to go faster, quicker, and cheaper. Right? So you got to be very careful with that government stuff. Let me step another question that is really important for me. Right now, as we look at the digital solution companies around the world, whether it's HubSpot, whether it's Salesforce, they're already beginning to put AI agents all the way across the sales process or the marketing process. And those things are automatically generating brochures for you, automatically generating emails, content for you, and all that. How do you manage the use of a tool like HubSpot, which has got the whole selling process or the whole marketing process mapped out, including customer journeys, with AI agents everywhere, versus what you're saying is think cleanly about what you need to do and make sure you build a series and the journey is about you. So the tools are driving a certain way to do sales and marketing with AI agents versus how you are saying, think of it from your business's perspective of what you need to do. Just this conflict or collaboration.
Yes, and I think that, I hear that so much in my CRM work of the tool is driving. People get a tool and they think they have to use all the features because they paid for them. And that's crazy. If you go to Costco, and Costco here in the US is one of those big warehouse stores where you can buy enormous packages of potato chips or, crisps or something, just because you bought 5 pounds of crisps doesn't mean you're going to go home and eat the whole thing. You don't need to use all of the features. You don't need to be driven by the features. You can, first of all, customize your implementation and also use the features where you are ready to use them, where you have a clean data structure, where you have clean data, and where you have good guidelines and parameters. And you can roll out from there. There's still a very strong or argument to be made for purchasing a comprehensive tool like a HubSpot, because it will allow you, once you have your data clean, all of the different features, all of the different functionalities are going to draw on the same data. So maybe you use one feature now like chatbot, and then you go into marketing automation, then you go content personalization. If you are using a multitude of different tools, one each, you're back to having silos. So even if you're paying for features you're not currently using, the core strength is there in the sense that you are cleaning your data one and done in one place, and all of the updates to the data that are going to result from your first pilot, whatever that may be, are going to then spill out into the next implementation and the next implementation. So think of it as a strength, even if you're not using all of the features at once. Don't let the features drive, don't let the product drive, let your strategic roadmap drive. But that actually is an argument in favor. If your roadmap is that you're going to do like 5 different things that you're going to automate with AI, have them all be in the same platform to avoid silos, to avoid your data getting dirty again. And each one will be stronger and easier to do because your data gets cleaner and cleaner the more you understand it and the more you take proactive efforts. So all of those, that's actually going to be a strength, but don't just feel like you must use every aspect of the tool immediately that you have implemented, and make sure that you're customizing. Remember, we are the people. The robots are not in charge. You're not doing what the tool tells you to do. You're not using all the features of the software just because you paid for them. You're using them strategically and scaling. And having one platform in place is actually going to help you. So thank you for
Christina,
bringing that up.
yeah, the other thing that I see is the use of AI as an assistant or agent is it generates more content than the person in charge. So the
Yes.
AI assistant creates a lot of content, and people are becoming increasingly trusting or lazy. I don't know which word it is, to not read the content very well, and they will pass it on to the next person or even push it out as email blasts as content without actually reading all the details. And this how do you overcome this quality control that's needed, that you need to check, you need to make sure it represents your brand, as you said, your brand positioning. It's got to represent all this stuff, but we are humans and we are inherently lazy, and therefore we'll take the shortcuts if the shortcuts are available to us. And how do you put some more governance around that to make sure there's a quality control on the brochures that are automatically generated or the emails that are automatically generated and all this stuff. And it looks really nice on the first glance. But the second glance says, my God, this is really amateurish.
Well, if you have employees who are doing sloppy work, it doesn't matter whether they're doing sloppy work with AI or they're doing sloppy work with a spatula. The cure is the same. I mean, if you're running a restaurant and people are undercooking hamburgers and giving people food poisoning, you don't think there's an inherent problem with the hamburgers. There's an inherent problem with the employee. And I don't mean to say that in a harsh way or punitive way, but quality control is quality control.
Very good.
Simple. And if you don't have quality control practices in place, AI is going to exacerbate the problem, because exactly what you said, if somebody is sloppy in their quality control, if they're lazy about it, if they don't really care, then because AI can look plausible and it doesn't make the same mistakes humans do, we can notice if like a button is missing on a landing page much more easily than if we notice something that looks grammatically correct, but it is poorly written. So the key is to continuously enforce quality control, but let's assume the best case scenario that people are not sloppy if it were the kind of mistake that they're used to seeing, like a missing button or a missing logo, the kind of mistake a human makes, which they've seen time and time again, that they would catch it automatically, unconsciously, and that it's because it's a plausible looking output that it is harder for them to catch mistakes in AI. The key then is training them. What are the common mistakes that AI makes? Hallucinations, repetitiveness, as I talked about in my presentation, lack of context. And you start to train them to look for those errors. And that means they're going to have to slow down at first, because these are not the kinds of errors that they've been noticing their whole lives, their whole working lives, and therefore catching automatically. It means, and again, that's part of the reason why a lot of AI pilots fail, is that people don't realize that humans need to catch up with working with AI and what I call the human AI partnership. That means learning the kinds of mistakes an AI will make and learning to catch them. And that's quality control again, if you don't have quality control in your company, you're tanked. I really don't believe in what so many startups have done for the past 20 years of using lean and agile as an excuse to ship garbage. Just because you're lean and agile doesn't mean it should be on fire when it leaves your, factory floor. So if you are doing a bad job, it's going to get even worse. But again, if we're going to assume the best case scenario, which is that people mean well, but they just are looking for human style mistakes and not AI style mistakes, that is a training problem. You need to give them guidelines and parameters. And that goes back to how do we define success and what are the guidelines and parameters? That's QA. So you need to integrate that AI checking with your QA with what are my guidelines and parameters? What does success look like? I mean, if people are sending out emails they haven't read, I'm going to be blunt, they should have been fired before there even was AI, because that
Perfect.
is not normal behavior in a professional. So,
Christina, we are approaching the end of our webinar time. So
yes.
I wanted to ask one last question and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
And this question is, with the use of AI by everybody, by the use of digital by everybody, by the use of Salesforce and CRM tools by everybody, I am getting 100x nudges on saying, look at me, pay attention to me, give me some love, give me whatever. And they're using all kinds of tactics of manipulation to jealousy to saying, you haven't talked to me, or get me some flowers. I hear all kinds of amazing ways to provoke my attention in what I'm seeing on my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my social media, emails. How is AI going to help me from the customer side now filter out which is the garbage and which is the good, which is a provocation, which is a annoyance and all that kind of stuff? And I'm going to use my tactics to block out this also. So what do you see the next revolution of defense attack comes out on these things?
Well, marketing has always been defense and attack, especially since digital came on board. We've always been making more noise, and then customers filter us out better and better. And marketing always makes more noise, customers get better at ignoring. And we have been escalating since long before AI, since probably the first person who was a town crier was walking down the street ringing a bell. There was probably somebody else ringing a louder bell on the other end of the street. So this is not a new problem, but the new solution is algorithms. More and more social media algorithms are rewarding attention. So we get filtered out by the customers without them even realizing it, like on a TikTok or an Instagram, because they're interacting with what they like, and that automatically filters out things that they don't like. So we have to be what the customer likes, which again means focusing on your target audience. Don't try to be everything to everybody. Focus on the people that you resonate with the most and create content for them. And the algorithm will deliver you to those people if you are regular, consistent, and again, have those good brand guidelines, because that's going to help you adhere to what those customers who do want to hear from you expect. Don't try to be all over the place. Have a strict brand guidelines and quality control. That's why I emphasize that so much, because that will help you rise above the noise to your correct audience, to the audience who wants to hear from you.
Christina, what a great presentation.
Thank you so
For the audience around the world, this is cutting edge. This is where thinking is going. And here's a practitioner who's making it real by coaching, training people from training, education, and also actually implementing this sort of ideas. And so you're learning from a true practitioner and a teacher simultaneously. And so, Christina, thank you very much for this insights. We will send out your contact details to everybody, LinkedIn and your emails and everything else. And please, around the world, reach out. This is where the next bleeding edge is of marketing, CRM, and everything else. And AI agents can work for you or you can work for them. What we are being told is 5% of the people are making them work for you. And then on the other side, the rest of you are 95% could end up working for those agents. So good luck with that. Christina, thank you very much for coming on this thing. And
Thank
what
you,
a great
Jitendra.
presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.